What's up everybody, I'm Derek, this is Rocking eForge, and today I'm going to be forging a cape chisel for cold chiseling small keyways into steel. So, let's get rocking. For this project, I'll be starting with a 6.5 inch long piece of 3/4 inch round 4140 tool steel. And I'm going to start on the hammer end of this punch, just starting to forge a simple square taper, roughly 1 to 1.5 inches from one end of the stock. Making sure this is all squared up. Then I'm gonna immediately knock off these corners in the process of this. And that's going to be our struck end. Now later, I'm gonna grind this to a crown, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. We're gonna spin this around and we're gonna start working on the business end. And for the business end, I'm going to use the flat face of my rounding hammer to forge this end into a taper as well, making sure that I'm trying to keep this as square with my other end as possible. I'm not going to let this get too cold because this is a medium carbon steel, but I'm going to forge this down to a 5/16 inch square taper at the end and then blend that back up to about 1.25 inches here at the tip. All right, so I've gotten this forged up to a 1.25 inches right here at the corner. I'm gonna forge this back a little bit more because I actually got the tip down to a 1/4 inch square, not 5/16. And that's because there's a little bit of fish lipping here I'm gonna grind off, and I'm gonna grind it back to be slightly wider. Now once you've got that worked out, I'm gonna come to the horn of the anvil and lay the corner of the transition from square to round right on the contact point on the horn and use the rounding side of my rounding hammer to start necking that down. So if you're following along, this should look pretty well like this. The intent with the next heat is going to be flattening this all out to the same thickness as the now kind of flared portion of the punch. I'm going to dress the slim sides of the business end down from basically the widest point to a nice flat taper all the way down to the tip. This is the idea, is that you've got this kind of triangular shape going on from a widened point, and the intent here is that the tip, right at the tip where the cutting edge is going to be, is wider in this axis than anywhere else all the way up the rest of the body here of the business end. And that's so that the cutting edge is the widest point and it's actually cutting material without dragging the sides through the cut that you're trying to make. All right, so now that I've got that worked out, I'm just gonna start kind of turning this into the final shape that I want. I just took that down to be a little more tame toward the handle. I'm going to spin this around. Whoop. And then I'm just going to forge this square and maybe taper it back toward the struck end. And then I'll be pretty well finished with the forging process and we can move on to heat treat. As a last second decision, I've decided to forge this kind of rectangular, just by forging down on the handle on one side and not correcting that square. And I'm going to forge on both opposing sides. And that'll make it easier to index in my hand in the orientation that I want to use it to cut. Next heat, I'm going to come in, knock down all those corners, and then we will anneal prior to the heat treat tomorrow. And the next day I'm going to pull this out of the ash and take it straight to the grinder to start cleaning up for the final steps. All right, so I got this up to a dull orange temperature. I'm going to come out of the forge and immediately just quench about the first ½ an inch of the tip. Then I'm going to come scrape tip off. So pretty quickly make it to that straw yellow color, about 450 degrees. See it bleeding up fast. Quench. My goal is to just do this as many times as possible with whatever heat is left in the body of the punch itself. And this just cycles me through as many tempering cycles as possible. Solid yellow there to quench. This process is to draw down the hardness of the tip, make it a little less hard, a little less brittle, and a little more tough and durable, to kind of balance the need to keep a sharp tip, which is why you harden a tool. The harder a blade is, the easier it is, or the longer it keeps an edge, but the more brittle and likely it is to chip. Whereas the softer a blade is, the less time it keeps an edge, but it won't have a propensity to chip on you if you were to drop it or hit it or something. And you'll notice I've tried to keep as much heat in the body of the punch as possible by keeping the whole punch up off the face of the anvil. The anvil is going to act as a big heat sink and draw all of that heat out. So I've been laying my tong jaws on the face of the anvil and keeping the punch up. We might be getting close to a straw yellow color now. All right, yeah, we're really lightly yellow at this point. Couldn't quench again. I guess we'll just fully quench. All right, and that fully arrests the tempering process. And now that I have fully heat treated and quenched this, I can go back to the grinder, grind off all this kind of scale and rust that's developed. Also get the edge geometry ground in, and we will be all finished up. And this particular type of chisel calls for a 60-degree convex tip. Given how thin it is, it's kind of difficult to get a convex tip on there, but I'm just going to grind this to a sharp tip on the slack portion of my grinding belt, and we are going to be all finished up. I'm planning to use this in the process of making my own hardy tools. And the Cape Chisel is one of the first steps on the journey to get there, as detailed in Skills of a Blacksmith Volume 1. So I'm really looking forward to putting this to use and seeing how that edge, how the heat treat and the edge geometry actually hold up to the design use that I actually intend it for. But that's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, or ring that notification bell. If you want to support the channel further, please consider becoming an honorary striker on my Patreon. That link is in the description below the video, or please consider becoming a member on my YouTube channel. And as always, keep on rocking.